done it.
If I just would have, if Cody came on and we both had handlebar mustaches.
Yeah,
You
I
should have
really
done that.
screwed. I really screwed. I was trimming my beard and took a big gouge out of it. There was no turning back at that point. It was gone.
Cody, can you grow hair on the rest of your face?
Kind of. Not very well though. If I could grow a beard like you, I definitely would.
Because Josh Bridges is always like, he acts like he feels bad for himself, but I know he's really proud of it. That he hasn't shaved once his cheeks, and that pretty much his look is his look. That's just the way he rolls.
Really? Wow. I'm a little bit like that. Not to that degree. But yeah, I'm always afraid of that, Brian. Like messing up when I'm trimming my mustache and then having to get rid of the whole thing.
Wait a sec. You know
Yeah.
who Brian is?
Yeah, I watch your podcast.
Oh, but have you ever met
I was
Brian
just
in
looking
person?
at his Instagram, seeing all of his quarterfinal workouts and stuff.
And you were thinking, I beat him there, I beat him there, I beat him there.
Sevan, turns out Cody did extremely well on 4 of the 5 tests in the quarterfinals. So
Tell me, I want to hear.
4 out of 5, man.
yeah, this is actually I'm pretty fascinated by this topic in general. I'm happy we have you on at this time of the season, Cody, because this question for you, but I also want to see if you have any thoughts about it as it applies to athletes in general. Because that rowing wall ball workout was very similar test to 19.1. And if you look at your results in 19.1, I think that year you were like top worldwide in all the other 4 workouts, and you were like 4,000th in 19.1. And that
Yeah.
was true for several athletes. I mean, Noah Olson from qualifying through the Open that season. There was a lot of talk about it. And sure enough, we get another test that's similar, and you did really well, 240th or better in the other 4 workouts. And then that one workout basically keeps you out of the semifinals. It's like, one, like, why haven't you got better at that movement combination? But more broadly speaking, why does it often there's an athlete that has a certain either combination of movements or a specific movement that no matter how much they train and try to improve, they just can't or don't seem to be able to relative to the field?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think my wall balls since I started CrossFit have gotten a lot better. Because I did my wall balls unbroken on that workout. It just came down to rowing, I think. So it's just a matter of one, kind of glaring weakness for me. I think, I'm at a little bit of a disadvantage with, my size and everything. But if I'll totally own the fact that I didn't work on rowing enough this year. Like, I've tried to focus on strength and narrow that, gap between myself and the rest of the field. And I think I have a little bit, but rowing is just one of those things that's still always been kind of a challenge for me. But
How much
But
do you
yeah,
weigh?
I
How
think-
much do you weigh, Cody?
I'm like 170 right now.
And how tall are you?
I'm like 5'7", 5'8".
And the first year you went to the CrossFit Games, how much did you weigh?
I was like 150 or something probably.
And what year was that?
2014.
No, that wasn't for you. That was for Brian. You don't know those kind of things. That's fine.
Well, everyone will remember that it was 2014 because he happened to have one of the performances ever in one of the events. Sevan, do you know what we're talking about?
I'm sure I'm sure it's something with muscle ups in it, because I remember just every time that Cody would come out onto the floor and there was a muscle up workout, there was energy in the crowd and people would get excited and want to see him try to push the limit. And that was one of the coolest things. By no means am I suggesting you're a specialist, Cody, by the way, but we all know who's good at relative to the field. We always know who's better at certain things than other things. And so it would always be fun to see someone like you who we knew was really good at muscle ups relative to the field. Well, and it's still only by a little bit, but that little bit it equals a lot at the CrossFit Games. It's like beating someone in a 400-meter race by 1 second, right? It's a huge victory. But we would love to see you push these athletes who everyone held on a pedestal and then beat them, and the crowd loved that. I think that's what they really liked about you and Josh Bridges, because there were these workouts that you would show up. There were people at the games who would show up and always take just 20th place in every event. But everyone knew at some point during the week there was going to be a workout, and Cody or Josh was going to stick it to someone. And so the crowd got electrified.
Those are fun moments, man.
I bet. How old are you now?
I'm 28.
And when you first started CrossFit, how old were you?
When I started CrossFit, I was how old was I? I was 18. So 10 years now.
Sevan, since you've asked these questions, it actually fits into one of the other main topics I wanted to kind of ask Cody about.
You don't have to justify to speak. Just interrupt and go.
I have noticed data analytics perspective that in the last couple of years, it seems that at the top end of the sport, especially for the men, there's been a shift in the size and weight of the athletes that are like, and I'm talking about like the top 10 at the games. And it's actually shifting towards your favor by an inch or two, and it's dropped by 8 to 10 pounds over the last couple seasons. Have you noticed that? There's, I'm trying to figure out why that is. I just wonder if you have any thoughts about it.
That's really interesting, actually. I thought it was the opposite, because you look at like 2014, you look at like Noah Olson and like all of us really, and we're so much smaller than we are now. But I don't know. I'm kind of how many years? Like, what do you say is how long has that been trending that way?
Well, in I think it was 2015 through 8, 4 years running. Basically, the top 10 men at the games were averaged 195, 9.5, and there was very little deviance over that 4 year time period. And in 2019, it dropped by 8 pounds and 2 inches, 2 full inches, which is like a crazy statistic.
Wow.
And that was the top 10 of the games in 2019. And then last season was kind of in between those two.
Do you think it's the programming or the way you get to the games, the programming has changed, or do you think it's just the kind of athlete has changed?
Yeah,
well, I think in 2019, and I've done some studies on this, that in particular, because of the way that events for all the scoring adjustments, that it was favorable for the smaller athletes. Mary was one of those workouts, the bar, and then just the straight sprint workout. Lighter athletes just dominated those workouts, and they were heavily system. But then when it was the next year, I mean, they had again, an online test, a smaller field. There's only 7 workouts to get down to that top 5, and again there was just a little bit more of a leaning. Then I started to like maybe there's something else going.
Cody, is the sound coming through your earphones or out of your computer?
It's out of my headphones. Do you guys hear stuff in the background?
No, it's fine. We've had some issues with echoes in past shows, and it takes hours to clean up in post-production, and I just felt my butthole pucker up like, oh God, are we gonna have an echo in the show? When you started the CrossFit Games, 18 years old was young, and that was sort of one of the special qualities about you. That's what made you stand out, because you were so young. And now that it's like Brian's telling me that there's 2 teenage girls that might qualify for the games. What do you think? What do you think about that? About your age versus young people doing CrossFit now? Do you have an opinion on that?
I love watching kids do CrossFit. I think it's awesome. So my first time at the games was 22, but I started CrossFit when I was 18. But yeah, like I think about how I was as an athlete when I was 18 compared to the growth, that I went through and the fitness that I gained over those years. Like, for a kid to be able to get into the CrossFit Games at that age is awesome. Like, I'm a huge fan of like Haley, and even Justin's pretty young. So I think, they're not even close to peaking yet. So it'll be awesome to see what those guys do.
Yeah, this is the other shift that I'm really kind of tracking right now, and especially actually on the women's side, because since they opened up the 35 to 39 Masters division, there's been, I think, about a dozen women who've been able to qualify for the games despite being over 35, and I think maybe only one man has done it. I think Jason Smith was 35 when qualified one year, but it's pretty distinct difference. And now we're starting to see that on the other end of the spectrum, there's actually teenage eligible competitors who have a real chance to qualify this year for the games, but it's not happening on the men's side. So there's like this huge gap. The women can be and actually have a chance to make it to the games, where the window on the men's side seems to be much more narrow, like probably 21 to 31, like a 10-year gap.
Yeah, that is really interesting. I know men kind of peak at, what is it, like 29 to 30-ish, or something. I don't know. Maybe that window is just kind of like a little more forgiving if you're a lady, but yeah, it's interesting.
It's compelling evidence. You know, in other sports, there's always been a wide range of ages, right? You know, we see quarterbacks go into their 40s. We see basketball players have these long careers, but it is really compelling evidence just based on the qualities of what CrossFit is when humans reach peak potential. I think it's probably one of the most valid tests. Obviously, I'm biased, but it's fascinating.